Hello Israel, it's me, Red Planet, coming to you one more time with another video. I have no rights to the video or music. Excuse me. Strictly for educational purposes only. Hear that, YouTube? Let's get into the video, Israel.
I have taken some time to pull any clues or brief descriptions of this world from several different ancient texts from different cultures and civilizations around the planet. We can take that information, look at the conditions of that time, and we can build a world around that information based on other conditions that would have to exist in order for certain things to be true. Or, I believe we could come very close. And if we also look at the fossil and geological records, the Earth before the biblical Great Flood was a very unique world. Very much like the world we live in today. This is a glimpse into the world of Noah, the world before the storm.
Are you a low-income American on food stamps or Medicaid? If so, you are now eligible.
The antediluvian world existed in the era before the Great Flood, and of course was a realm unlike any other. The first key to understand the antediluvian landscape is the high atmospheric moisture content. This ancient world was characterized by a consistently humid atmosphere, where the air was rich with water vapor. This high moisture content was the result of increased evaporation from bodies of water, which contributed to the unique phenomenon of mist rising from the ground, a world with virtually no rain, and storms are almost non-existent. There is a balanced climate, a second vital factor. This environment enjoyed stable temperature and humidity levels, creating the perfect conditions for the formation of mist. With its consistent climate, this world nurtured a harmonious relationship between the land and the atmosphere, allowing mist to rise regularly. It would have been a world devoid of large bodies of water such as oceans and seas. This absence contributed to the ability of the mist to rise from the ground, as large bodies of water would hinder this phenomenon. But there would probably still exist small lakes and definitely rivers, with high groundwater levels, so that the water could easily reach the surface. Thus, the pre-flood world may have featured a different geographical layout, with different land-to-water ratios. Unique geographical and environmental conditions were instrumental in the formation of mist. The meteorological processes in the antediluvian world were distinct from what we experience today. These unique processes led to the formation of mist as the primary source of moisture for plants and crops. The scarcity of traditional rain and the absence of conventional rain clouds meant that the mist became the life-giving force. So springs and underground water sources played a significant role in this world. The ground was rich with these underground springs, continually releasing water vapor. This created a constant source of moisture, which combined with the high atmospheric moisture content to produce the rising mist. Also, the soil would have to be very porous to allow water vapor to rise freely. Unique vegetation and ecosystems adapted to thrive in this misty environment. Flora of this world evolved specialized adaptations to capture and utilize moisture from the rising mist. Leaves featured intricate structures to efficiently collect and channel water to the roots, and plants stored moisture in their various organs, ensuring their survival in a world where water was a limited resource. Because without rainfall, a plant would be limited to only the moisture in the air. Therefore, a plant would be more like a cactus to retain the water it can absorb within a certain length of time. This means that the plant's growth would be slower, with thicker, larger vegetation. Because of the moisture on the surface of the plants and trees, there would be many epiphytic plants, which is vegetation that grows on other vegetation, like the moss on trees. Also, there would be more endemic species of plants and animals because there wouldn't exist the wind systems to carry seeds long distances, or animals wouldn't have to travel too far for food. Not as many animals would have to migrate because of the consistency in the climate around the world, with the exception of the northern and southern poles at the time, which were probably in significantly different locations back then than they would be today. It is a world with high trees and foliage that cover the sky, forming a canopy, shielding the environment below from the intensity of the sun's rays. Because of the canopy and mist of water vapor, one would think that this world would be dimly lit. But this world glows and sparkles from the bioluminescence of the vegetation and wildlife. The wildlife in this mist-dependent world was equally extraordinary. These creatures had evolved to rely on the mist as their primary source of hydration. From large mammals to insects and invertebrates, they exhibited an array of physiological and behavioral adaptations to capture and utilize moisture from the air, plants, and other organisms. Nocturnal behavior was a common adaptation among wildlife in this environment. Creatures were most active during the night when humidity levels were higher, a strategy to maximize water conservation and reduce water loss through evaporation. Microspecies would have sought out areas where mist concentration was higher, such as specific trees or shrubs for roosting or nesting. Some formed mutualistic relationships with plants, aiding in seed dispersal or pollination in exchange for access to moisture resources. Camouflage and other unique adaptations were prevalent among the wildlife, allowing them to blend into the misty surroundings. Some exhibited features like pale coloration or specialized fur and feather structures. Now, seasonal patterns are important to the survival of certain species in this world. The mist patterns were not consistent year-round, and some wildlife exhibited seasonal migration to areas with more reliable sources of moisture during periods of lower mist concentration. Small mammals and reptiles dominated the landscape, requiring less water than larger animals. They had adapted to burrow in search of moisture, helping them survive in this environment. This environment could also support gigantic creatures with very efficient respiratory systems. They might require less frequent hydration in a humid environment. They would need to possess efficient thermal regulation mechanisms to avoid overheating in a misty, humid environment. These animals might also have longer lifespans living in this world.
Are you still interested in a solar-powered generator? Just pay special attention because I'm going to do something that until recently we've never done. I'm going to offer this.
Now, with all this in place, we have another addition to complete God's work: the creation of mankind. The first man was Adam, placed in the Garden of Eden that was surrounded by 4 rivers: Pishon, Gihon, the Tigris, and the Euphrates. Adam's initial task was to name the animals, a responsibility he undertook before God fashioned woman from his rib. This newly created female was given the name Eve by Adam. As the first generation of humanity on earth, Adam and Eve found themselves exiled from Eden. Their expulsion stemmed from their inability to uphold God's singular command, which strictly prohibited partaking of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The cunning deception of Satan, who assumed the guise of a serpent during this pivotal moment, led to humanity's banishment from the divine presence of their Creator. This unfortunate transgression marked the introduction of sin and death into the world. Adam and Eve journeyed east and welcomed 2 sons into their family. Their firstborn was named Cain, and shortly thereafter, Eve gave birth to another son named Abel. In the wake of Adam's transgression, he now had to engage in strenuous activity to obtain food from the land. Adam took on the task of tilling the soil and tending to herds of animals. Meanwhile, Cain assumed the role of a farmer, tending to the land, while Abel became a shepherd, caring for his flocks, following the teachings of Adam. Thus, we witness the early establishment of farming and agricultural practices during the antediluvian period. Now Cain kills his brother Abel and was then sent away from the settlement. And already the world has a serious problem with violence. Then Adam and Eve have another son named Seth, who would go on to have sons and daughters of his own. And because of the lifespan of humans at that time, people are not dying off unless they are killed, which would lead to an enormous explosion of population growth if your ancestors are still around hundreds of years later. So, it's commonly estimated that the time from the creation of Adam to the Great Flood was around 1,656 years. This estimate is derived from adding the ages of the individuals listed in the genealogy in Genesis. So this is how much time humans had back then to evolve their civilization. Now, when the population of Earth began to grow exponentially, the sons of God, those that were chosen to guard and protect the human population, were led to take human women, all of whom they chose, and had hybrid children with them, known as the Nephilim. These fallen angels not only corrupted the bloodline of humans, but also that of animals, creating a world of giants and monsters. Moses documents 10 generations between the creation of Adam.
So we know when the fallen had the Nephilims and the Most High destroyed the fallen, he destroyed the Nephilims because they all killed each other, destroyed each other, and the fallen had to watch their seed get destroyed. Also, he turned the women that lay with the fallen into servants. And that's why you see so many of them now.
And Eve to Noah's time. He only documents the genealogies of the first 9 generations. In Genesis 4:20, Lamech had 2 wives. One was named Ada, who had a son named Jabal, who was the founder of living in tents and raising cattle. Jabal began the industry of fabricating material from nature to build homes, which may have included utilizing animal skin. Ada had another son, who was named Jubal. He created musical instruments like the lyre and pipe. Lamech's other wife, Zillah, had a son named Tubal-Cain. He made all instruments of bronze and iron. By the 8th generation, the world was able to forge metal tools and other instrumentals that we use today. So this means humans were capable of creating tools that would help them to build large cities, along with the forbidden knowledge that came from the fallen angels during the days of Jared. Do you know that in the modern era, we went from riding horses and other animals to about 300 years of wagons, buggies, and carriages? Then, about another 50 years to get cars on the road. The civilization of the antediluvian world, with smarter people who were around for a longer period of time to gather knowledge and wisdom, to evolve technologically, along with one key factor that would contribute to a very rapid advancement in technology, and that is that everyone in that time period, they all spoke one language. We are talking about a futuristic civilization with vehicles, large buildings, music, marrying, high heels, partying, dancing, alternative lifestyles, alternative sexual lifestyles, abortions, polytheistic worship, and idolatry. Everything we have today and then some. Why? Smarter people who lived longer. They had to fortify and protect themselves from giants and monsters. And they spoke one language. Remember, in early Babylon, God put a halt to the building of the Tower of Babel by simply confusing the language. A population that could have been in the hundreds of millions, but due to the long lifespan of people back then, it was probably closer to 3 or 4 billion people. Although there may have been a lower population due to the predation from the Nephilim when they started to devour mankind. In the end, Noah and his family were the only people left in the world who knew God, while everyone else worshipped the sun and the dragon. Noah had both the technology and the time to build a great ark and load it with animals and food to survive the coming cataclysm. God, with a powerful force, created a 40-day storm, the first major storm, that would destroy all the hundreds of years of technology, art, music, history, etc., all gone. Even if they had flying vehicles back then, we could assume that they didn't have flying vehicles that could stay in the air for 40 days or more. I am sure at that time, some people probably prepared for the worst, but I'm afraid none of them, with the exception of one family, was prepared for doomsday. Well, that's all for now. There is more to come. Be sure to visit woodwardentertainment.com and become a level 1 member for exclusive